Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, how everyone's feeling today? I hope you are all very well. My name is Putri Widiyansari and I'm as the first speaker from group 2. Here, I would like to talk to you about learning approach for language learning. Next. Before starting to discuss various kinds of approaches, it's good when we know that first. How about approach? An approach to language learning is an approach that looks at teaching and learning. Underlying every approach to language teaching is a theoretical understanding of what language and how it can be learned. Next. Then, do you know what helps learning approach for language learning? The first one is use methods in learning. The second one is think of ways something to be taught. And then the third one is use activities or techniques in the classroom. The most important thing is approach to learning refers to the skills and behaviors that children use to engage in learning. Furthermore, approaches to learning focus on how children learn. It refers to the skills and behaviors that children use to engage in learning. The approaches to learning domain incorporates emotional, behavioral, and cognitive self-regulation and under a single umbrella to guide teaching practice that support the development of these skills. Next. Learning approach that can be used in language learning. There are 6 types of the approach. The first one is communication language teaching. Sorry for the typo. And then the second one is task-based language learning or TBLL. The third one is genre-based approach. The fourth one is scientific approach. The fifth is reading approach. And the last is audiolingual approach. Next. Let's move to communication language teaching. Communicative language teaching or communication language teaching is an approach to the teaching of languages that emphasizes interaction and the ultimate goal of learning a language. Next. The features of CLT, they are focused on meaning, communicative competence is the desired goal, learner-centered, fluency is the primary goal, students are expected to interact with other people, either in oral practice, through pair and group work, or in their writings. The last is dialogues, if used, center around communicative functions. Brown, 2001, offered 6 characteristics of CLT. The first, classroom goals supply the component of communicative competence. Slide before mood. The second is language technique is used to motivate students to use language for meaningful purposes. Mood before the slide. The third, complementary principles are fluency and accuracy, even though fluency is more crucial in language use. The fourth, students are obligated to use the language productively. The fifth, teacher give much opportunities to students. And then the sixth, teacher as a facilitator and guide students by keeping interaction. CLT involves many classroom activities. There are pair work, role play, question answer session, then group work and language games. It is not confined to any set of the textbooks. Next. Task-based language learning or TBLL. Next. TBLL is a further refinement of the CLT approach, where the planning of learning materials and teaching sessions are based around doing a task. Next. In task-based learning involves many activities. For example, write a letter, make a reservation, plan a trip, collaborate to design something, or hold a meeting. In task-based learning, the language content is defined not by a grammar syllabus, but by what learners need to complete the task. The tasks themselves can reflect real-life situations. Next slide, Mut. Next slide, please. Is it right? The task can reflect real-life situation. For example, in educational or work context, the first is giving an academic presentation, attending an interview or meeting, applying for a job, dealing with the public, things that people need to do every day in different fields like tourism, health service, business, and the last is education. And the most important thing, if you use a task-based approach, the language you focus on is going to be rich, and it will include all aspects of language, including functional language and etc.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mutiara Dini A. Here, I'm a second speaker. I'm going to explain about genre-based approach. And now, we will discuss about the definition of genre-based approach. Genre-based approach is a writing learning model that emphasizes an understanding of how to construct text. Next, the approach is based on a teaching cycle which involves 4 strategies. There are 4 strategies. The first is building knowledge of text. The second is modeling of text. The third is joint construction of text. The last one is independent construction of text. And now, I will explain the strategies one by one. We start from building knowledge of text in the first. Building knowledge of text activities at this step enable the learners to explore cultural similarities and differences related to the topic, and then share experience relevant to the topic, and then practice grammatical patterns relevant to the topic, and the last, build up vocabulary relevant to the topics. Next, there are modeling of text. Activities at this step enable the learners to develop an understanding of the social function and purpose of the text, and then develop an understanding of the overall organization of the text, include generic structure and grammatical features. The next, there are joint construction of text. Activities at this step enable the learners to contribute the knowledge of the field in the shared construction of the text with the social function, generic structure, and grammatical feature in group. And the last one, there are independent construction of text. Activities at this step enable the learners to contribute the knowledge of the field in the shared construction of the text with the social function and then generic structure and grammatical features in group. The differences between independent construction of list and joint construction of text is if joint construction of text is doing enable the learners is in a group. And next, we move to the next part. There are scientific approaches. The definition of scientific approaches is scientific method and organized plan for gathering, organizing, and communicating information. And next, there are the general step. The general step of scientific method that must be following. This is the idea according to Commandicwood. They said the scientific approach is a learning model that uses scientific principles that contain a series of data collection activities through observation, questioning, experimenting, analyze data, and communicating. As present in the slide, the scientific approach has actually been used in curriculum in Indonesian. Yes. And next, there are the purpose of the scientific approach in learning. There are many purposes in use scientific approach in learning language, such as improve the thinking skill of students, ability to solve the problems, better understand and observe events, create learning condition.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm a third speaker from our group. I'm Sinda Dayanti, and I want to tell you about reading approach. Definition of reading approach is learning a language is applied is a means to a higher end. This approach has both structural and functional underpinnings. Next. The type of student that most appreciates this method probably never intended to interact with native speaker in the target language. Next. A student like this requires only one linguistic skill, reading comprehension. So you do away with pronunciation and dialogues. Vocabulary words are learned in context. The little grammar that you teach must be oriented towards understanding a piece of reading. You need to teach elements like conjunction, which nestled phrases and sentences together, and negation, which changes the meaning of sentence by 180 degrees. Next. The next is audiolingual approach. Definition of audiolingual approach is unlike the reading approach, the audiolingual approach gives higher priority to the spoken form than the written form. Classes are generally held using the target language. Activities like role-playing or dialogues are drilled into students until they get the pronunciation and rhythm right, and because audiolingualism borrowed from the behavioral school of psychology, language are taught through a system of reinforcement. Next. Thank you for your intention. Sorry for our mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.